eighth wonder of the world, basically a geek show. And here are your hosts, Mike and Jack.
2, 1.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to episode 69 of, of basically a geek show. And we are going to, this is going to kick off a three-part, I guess you could call it a Warcraft extravaganza. Basically, a lot of World of Warcraft stuff has hit over the last month or so, and it's going to continue to hit for at least another month. And we just wanted to, take that time, because there's really not much going on at the moment. San Diego Comic-Con's coming up, and we will touch on that once that happens, but more or less, let's just talk about all the big Warcraft news coming up, because we've had the movie, the live-action Warcraft movie, which has been in development since, 2008. And let's also talk about Legion. Legion, of course, we actually did sort of our thoughts. We actually recorded a show where we recorded our thoughts on Legion as they were announcing it. So it's going to be nice to kind of get into the groove of talking about that with it just over a month away. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. Let's first talk about the movie. You and I have both seen the Warcraft movie, Jack.
Yeah.
And I guess, good as place as any to start, what did you think? Because I know you were going in very jaded.
Yeah, I don't really... It's very difficult for me to get excited about a movie these days, just because there's just always so much goddamn hype and so much marketing and so much fucking bullshit. Mm-hmm. And every second they spend on that shit just makes me kind of more wary. Because in my eyes, the harder you're trying to convince me that something's good, just means that you're trying to cover it up.
Well, then that should have been good news for Warcraft, because Universal put almost nothing beyond the bare basics, in terms of promotion behind this.
I've seen worse movies.
Mm-hmm.
It's not bad. There's worse ways to spend 2 hours, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Is it everything we could have hoped for? No, it's not. But then again, nothing would have been.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. It's got one or two glaring flaws that really kind of keep it from ranking higher in my book.
I think I think you and I are in agreement on the first one, and that being the guy playing Khadgar. Because God.
What the fuck? Whose kid is he?
I was just about to say that. I saw it before you, and then I told you, and you asked me, what did you think of it? And I was like, mostly pretty good, but Khadgar really sucked. And then you saw it a couple days later, and you messaged me was Khadgar a producer's kid or something?
Yeah, this dude's performance brings the entire movie down to feeling like the most expensive fanfic ever made.
Mm-hmm. Everyone else, in terms of acting, it's not poorly acted. Everyone does a pretty good job, except for him.
Yeah. And
he single-handedly sinks at almost any scene he's in.
Yeah. It's really that bad. God damn it. I don't know, if it was, bad directing, or this guy just inherently sucks,
mm-hmm.
or what.
And it's particularly bad. Okay, it didn't bug me as a fan, because I've kind of been meh on Khadgar. He's never been a favorite of mine. I don't hate the character, but he's always just sort of been there. Yeah. So I definitely don't have a betrayed me sort of reaction. But at the same time, I could imagine that, if someone was a Khadgar fan, they wouldn't be too happy about it. And the fact that, my feelings on Khadgar aside, he is one of the main characters of the Warcraft mythos, and he's a main character in this film, so it's not like it's a bad performance that you can kind of just sweep under the rug. He's front and center for most of the movie, and it's... Oh, God. And the actor's name is Ben Schnitzer, son of two other actors. And he went to, and apparently he studied in the UK, so I don't know. I'm looking at his filmography.
Now you say the son of two other actors. Who were said actors?
Steven Schnitzer and Nancy Snyder.
Okay, never heard of either of them.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe it's just like a long line of mediocrity.
I'm looking at his filmography. He was like in an episode of Law and Order, and a couple of smaller independent movies. It looks like Warcraft is his biggest film he's been in to date.
So Law and Order followed by indie films. I mean, there you go, right there.
And then
that's
And then he's going to be in an upcoming movie about Edward Snowden. And
yay!
A movie that I have no idea what it's called, but it's just called Goat. And apparently he's the lead in it.
Well,
so, there you go.
Sign me the fuck up for that.
Khadgar, not really bringing it. But, and again, he's a main character, so his one bad performance really does sort of drag the film down a bit. What was the other thing that you mentioned that kind of dragged it down?
Honestly, and this is, say what you will about this, I just don't like their choice of time period to set this in.
Well, it's set during Warcraft 1. Basically, it's basically a movie version of the first Warcraft game.
Yeah, I would have liked for them to have gotten to the good stuff.
Now, I'm going to disagree with you a bit, because there's a lot here that I consider good stuff.
Like, basically from Warcraft 2 on, I would call the good stuff.
Well,
for me, the idea of Warcraft 1 is very generic. It doesn't,
Well, okay, in theory, I don't have a problem with Warcraft 1, because, look, the big money today is in speculative fiction franchises. To quote Deadpool, that sounds like a fucking franchise, right? That's where the money is. So I can see the thinking being like, okay, we're going to turn Warcraft into a film franchise that we can just keep chugging movies out. And in that sense, starting at 1 makes sense, because as the films go on, you eventually do get to Warcraft 2, Warcraft 3, WoW, and so on. Problem is that this movie doesn't look like it did well enough to justify that.
Yeah,
this movie... I'm not going to pull any punches here. It bombed. All right, it bombed in North America. I saw this film opening night, and just for the sake of comparison, another movie that came out around the time, I saw Batman v Superman opening night, and Batman v Superman, it grossed over $800 million, and people are calling it a financial disappointment, which kind of shows what kind of fucked up world we're living in, where a movie can make $800 million, and people are like, whatever.
Yeah.
But I saw Batman v Superman opening night, packed theater. I saw this opening night, and it was like the first... Well, not first, but like the back 5 rows, because, everyone... When people go to the movie theaters, you generally start seating from the back and work your way front. So like the top 5 rows were filled for Warcraft, and I think everyone in there was a WoW player because you heard. I kept hearing snickers and like kind of comments at all of the Easter eggy crap that WoW players would get, like the Murloc.
Right. Yeah.
Like the Murloc, and I heard audible groans when Thrall was born.
That's yeah.
I heard I heard groaning, and that's not just an Alliance thing, because god damn it, like Horde players are sick of him too. And yeah, you just like you see Thrall born, and I heard like a couple of grumbles, and then later on when like Draka goes to Duratan, it's like what will we call him? He's like Goel, and I heard everyone like go ah.
Why must we do this? And that's kind of like my other thing.
Oh, and then I saw the movie. I saw a movie 2 times. I saw a second time with a friend of mine who, basically, we were bored, and he was like, "Do you mind seeing Warcraft again?" And I was sure, and I went, "Sure." He has never played any of the games, and so he asked me, who's that orc kid? Because it's the son of one of the main characters, so he's obviously important. And I just go, "That's Thrall. You will learn to hate him."
Yeah, and this is the other reason why, as a whole, I really was not excited about these movies.
Mm-hmm.
Because Thrall is such an integral part of the story, there's no way around him. And I know that even if there was a way around him, they wouldn't do it.
I mean, there definitely is a way around it. I mean, they changed plenty from the lore for this movie, so I mean, and I don't hold any of the lore changes against the movie. I'm not one of those people who's like, "Oh my god, they changed this thing. 0 out of 10 would not recommend." Like, I'm not being like that. I think all of the changes they made, I think if you take all of the changes to the lore that they made as a whole, like the new version of the story still works on its own in its own right. So I'm okay with. I don't have a problem with any of the changes, but I'm just saying that because they made changes, it's obvious. Like they didn't have to do Thrall if they didn't want to.
Oh yeah, no, they would have had to have done Thrall. But like the funny thing is, this movie, like you said, has been in the works in some way or another since 2008. I remember still living in Kentucky, like before the whole flood bullshit, talking to you about Sam Raimi doing this movie and us bitching about it.
Oh, because Sam Raimi didn't want to have Arthur. Well, back then, that was when they were going to base it during the WoW period. So
right, which would have been a better idea.
But when they were talking about doing a WoW-based movie, Sam Raimi was like, "I'm not going to have Varian Wrynn or Arthas in my World of Warcraft movie." It's like, what?
Yeah, and yeah, they were right to get rid of him because fuck him. But it would have been better if they'd started at the Warcraft 2 or 3 or WoW period. When you take the events of Warcraft 1 and you distill it, all you get is a generic fantasy. And that's really what this movie is. It's a generic fantasy movie. Mm-hmm. That's what it looks like. That's what it feels like. I mean, to WoW players, yes, it's a lot more. You got the cool Easter eggs in there, like the few seconds of the Stormwind theme when you see the city, which is done beautifully. The fucking Murloc, which felt kind of shoehorned in, but whatever.
Well, that whole scene's shoehorned in because the setup is like they run across the Murloc as they're going from Stormwind to Goldshire. There's absolutely no reason for them to go to Goldshire because, for those who don't know, the Kingdom of Stormwind, its capital is the city of Stormwind, and Goldshire is a small town that in game is right next to it. I think in the lore it's like a day's ride away or something. But anyway, point being, Goldshire is a small town next to Stormwind. Khadgar and Anduin Lothar, who is the commander of Stormwind's military, are investigating some strange crap going on in Stormwind. And Khadgar's like, "You need to summon the Guardian." That's Medivh. And
you need to summon the Guardian. He is the only one who can help us.
And so so Lothar's like, we need only the king could summon the guardian. And then you think, well, okay, if you need the king, it's Stormwind. He should be there. They're like, take him to Goldshire because apparently King Lane is just in Goldshire for some reason.
The movie takes place on the Moonguard server, undeniably.
They should have walked into the Goldshire Inn and King Lane's just walking around without a shirt on.
Looking for love.
King Lane is walking around without a shirt on next to some naked night elf chick.
Yeah. On the good side of the movie, I did enjoy Anduin Lothar.
Travis, who's played by Travis Fimmel.
The crazy eyes.
He had crazy eyes the entire movie.
And it kind of doesn't fit my idea of the character, but it's still entertaining in its own way, so it's just kind of like, yeah, roll with it.
Well, they changed a bit about Lothar. I think in the original lore, Lothar is already like 50 or so by the time the First War comes around, and he's like kind of this grizzled old badass already.
Yeah.
Here he's obviously meant to be much younger. So I guess, this is just a younger, slightly more insane version of Lothar who, because when Blackhand kills his son, Lothar gives him, I'm gonna fucking kill you eyes.
Yeah.
And not like the, I will avenge my son kind of way, but in the, I will fucking skull fuck you way.
Yeah, I will kill you and hate fuck your entire family. Oh yes, including the children. Especially the children. Yeah, that was definitely the look.
Yeah, it was weird. In a good way, definitely. I thought he did a good job as Lothar. Speaking of Blackhand, I love it because for the longest time I've loved Blackhand as a character. Him and his son Rend Blackhand. Rend Blackhand, unfortunately, does not make an appearance in this film. But if somehow they get more movies out of this, then there is potential for the Rend Blackhand movie that we all deserve. But going back to his father, just plain old Blackhand Esquire. He is, okay, for the longest time, Blackhand, I was like the lone Blackhand fan, because Blackhand, for the longest time, was just known as the war chief from Warcraft 1 who Orgrim Doomhammer kills. And that was basically the lore behind him for, the longest time. And I was, the one guy who liked Blackhand. Then fast forward to Warlords of Draenor, and Blackhand is the only legendary orc character who they managed to portray properly, because Ner'zhul gets fucking offed in a 5-man dungeon. Kargath Bladefist is the first boss of a raid, and then Kilrog Deadeye...
Who the fuck is he even? I mean...
Kilrog Deadeye eventually drinks the Fel Kool-Aid, I guess. But point being that between this movie and Warlords of Draenor, we're experiencing something of a Blackhand renaissance, and I love it. But Blackhand in this movie I liked. And he's played by Clancy Brown, who is most famous. He's the Kurgan from the first Highlander movie. And he also does the voice of Lex Luthor from the Superman animated series. But he was Blackhand, and I like... maybe I'm just biased because of the character, but he and Gul'dan's little circle jerk subplot was, to me, the real interesting thing about the Horde side of the movie. I didn't give a shit about Durotan and his, pangs of conscience storyline. Fuck Durotan. You know what? Blackhand and Gul'dan being all the Fel. That was where the good stuff was to me, as far as the orc stuff went.
Drink the Kool-Aid!
Yeah, we even get we get two scenes. We get the scene where Orgrim Doomhammer is potentially going to take over the Frostwolf clan, and Gul'dan is like, wanna drink the Fel Kool-Aid? And then there's after Gul'dan kills Durotan, he goes to Blackhead, he's like, you will drink the Fel Kool-Aid! Like, he's not even giving him the option at this point because everyone keeps saying
Yeah, no, he's just like tackling people, holding the funnel over the mouth. Nigga, drink! And just pouring the shit down their throat.
Yeah, he's like, he goes to Blackhand, he's like, and you, War Chief, will drink the fel! Like, you get the feeling he's, like, tired of putting up the choice because no one's taking him up on it.
Well, I mean, it's this glowing green fucking ooze that looks like it should be on fucking Nickelodeon. Well, no, I'm sorry, Nickelodeon from, like, the 1990s.
And I did love, speaking of Gul'dan, there was one scene where Duratan and Orgrim are talking, and Duratan goes, did it ever occur to you that, like, our home planet went to hell around the time that Gul'dan came to power? And Duratan's like, no. And meanwhile, there's fucking Gul'dan in his Palpatine robes being like, yes, the fel feeds on life.
Yeah, well, and then Duratan just kind of like nods out to the landscape. And on one hand, to the left, you see where Gul'dan has walked through, and everything's like dead and desolated. And then on the other half, you see where Gul'dan has not gone yet, and everything's all like warm and chipper, and there's like birds flying around doing a Disney number as they hang a necklace around a deer's neck. And, Doomhammer just like, correlation does not prove causation.
He's like, one orc cannot kill a world. It's like, yeah!
He's like, wanna bet?
But Gul'dan seemed so trustworthy during the election.
Yeah. Make Draenor great again.
Oh, and then there's like another period where like apparently Blackhand's well aware of this, and he's like well aware he's a puppet. He just doesn't give a fuck anymore because there's like a scene after Duratan tries to parlay with the humans, and like the orcs find out and they stop him, and Blackhand, who is the war chief of the Horde and nominally their supreme leader, but of course he's Gul'dan's puppet, and Blackhand bursts into Duratan's tent and he grabs him. And he's like, you're a traitor! And Duratan's like, no, I just believe in what we used to be like you used to. And like, I'm paraphrasing, obviously, but Blackhand's like, that time has passed! I'm on Team Kill Train now!
Well, yeah, pretty much.
Like, he's flat out, so he's like, yeah, but, whatever.
Yeah, I mean, basically, like, okay, the Warcraft movie reminds me of another movie that everyone says sucks, but I really enjoy.
Okay.
Dungeon Siege, In the Name of the King. The one where Burt Reynolds is like the bad guy and just it's still Burt Reynolds.
Oh yeah, he didn't give a fuck. He doesn't even put on an accent. He's just Burt Reynolds.
Yeah, no, he's just fucking Burt Reynolds. And I love that movie. I do for whatever reason. I mean, and it's a generic as fuck fantasy movie.
Mm-hmm.
Like, everything about it is just generic as fuck.
Mm-hmm.
And Warcraft is kind of the same way. It's generic as fuck. I again blame that mostly on them starting at Warcraft 1, where, like, when they, back in the early 90s when they made the first Warcraft game, yeah, it had more story than your average war game at the time. But that's not saying much. I mean, they just tacked on, like, this generic orcs versus humans story.
Well, it was originally meant to be a Warhammer game. Like, they started development.
And then they lost the license or something, didn't they?
Well, no, they never got the license. They were going to approach Games Workshop, who owns Warhammer, but I guess Blizzard, couldn't keep it in their pants, and they were such fanboys for the Warhammer stuff that they just kind of started the game and were like, "Oh, we'll get the license later." And by the time they came around to asking for the license, Warhammer was like, Games Workshop was like, "Nah, we don't want to do a video game." And then so they had this like game that was 1/3 of the way done, but no license, so they just changed a few names around, and
Yeah, honestly, even
universe.
like the font for Warcraft looks a lot like the font for,
Warhammer.
yeah.
Yeah, it does. It does, and I guess at this point, they're not changing it because that's been the font on the box for like close to 20 years now. So, it is what it is.
Yeah, I just always I always thought that even in my, well, I guess my early 20s playing Warcraft 2, it looks kind of like they're trying to do a Warhammer thing with this, but whatever. But anyways, yeah, it's this kind of generic fantasy movie is what it feels like to me, and that's what it'll feel like to the person who's not into the Warcraft game series. I liked it though. I mean, if you're a fan of the games, you should definitely see it. You're not going to hate it. You'll probably still, unless you're super OCD about the lore shit and just can't accept that in a movie they're going to change some things. If that's your thing,
that's not the color of the High Elf banner. 0 out of 10.
Right? And if that's how you are, then don't see it. You're just going to go on a forum and rage and pretend that your opinion matters. But it doesn't, just like ours really doesn't. But we're here talking about it, so whatever. If you just like fantasy movies in general and want a fun movie to waste a couple hours with, you could do a lot worse.
What did you think? I want to go over a few lore changes. I think you and I are both in agreement that whatever you could say about this movie, it doesn't suffer due to changes to the lore. That's not a problem.
That's the least of its issues.
But I figure, for the sake of discussion, let's talk about a few key differences, and I figure run them by you and see what you think. A few changes. In this movie, in the lore, Garona is half Draenei, half orc, and I think her father was an orc, and her mother was Marad's sister. Vindicator Marad, the
right.
Draenei Pally. They changed it in this one. They made her half human, half orc.
Orc, and had Medivh be her father.
Yeah, and it's not said outright in the movie, but it's heavily hinted at, and I think the novelization of the movie flat out says it. They explain that Medivh somehow was able to go to Draenor at some point in the past, and he met her mother, and they had a fling, and Garona is the result of that. I guess, now the reason why this is interesting is because in the game lore, they're not related, and in fact, they have a son together. And now they're father-daughter.
Awkward.
Which is ultimately a good thing, because their son has only ever appeared in the Warcraft comics, and apparently, I haven't read those comics, but from what I could tell, that character is absolutely hated. The character's name is Medan.
I've heard of it. I've heard the name.
And
Medan. God. We need something that sounds relatively not human. We'll just put something in front of Dan. How's that? And then his son, Medave. Majim.
But Medan is apparently, from what I can tell, for people who have read that book, he is the WoW equivalent of Wesley Crusher.
Oh God.
Even more so than Anduin.
Oh God.
So it's
That's
sort of
horrible.
like,
why would you do that?
And so, in fact, Blizzard has been very adamant about him not even appearing in the games because he's had such a poor reception. Like, people have asked, is he going to show up in the games? And Blizzard's response has always been,
hell no, he sucks.
He's off having his own adventures. Which is, yeah. And, so I guess they just sidestepped this issue because now Garona and Medivh are father-daughter, so there's not going to be a Medan, and I suppose we're all better off for that.
I mean, see, I wasn't even aware, of that change.
Mm-hmm.
So I really don't care. I mean, it's whatever, I mean, Garona is 11 out of 10 would fuck again. Green bitches.
And then there was another big change on the orc side of things. Orgrim Doomhammer as a character really gets the short end of the stick in this adaptation.
Yeah, he's just kind of there.
In the original lore, he is the one orc with a conscience, and when he realizes that Blackhand is Gul'dan's puppet, he challenges him to a duel and kills him, and becomes the new war chief, so he can try to lead the orcs back to something resembling honor, and so on and so forth. In this, the whole orc with the conscious part goes to Durotan because Thrall!
Right, yeah, because evidently they couldn't have Thrall's daddy, be a bad guy. Actually, I think it was honestly, they wanted the character of Thrall, but couldn't work Thrall into the timeline, so they had Durotan be Thrall. Seriously, I think that's what it is. And they're pushing this fucking noble savage bollocks down our fucking throat.
Mm-hmm.
And...
which is why I like Blackhand, because he doesn't... There is none of that bullshit with Blackhand. He is the orc that... He is what's on the label. And he's like, okay, you're a badass orc. Let's fight. And it's like, as far as Blackhand goes, there's no bullshit involved. But there's lots of bullshit with Thrall and Durotan.
Indeed.
But, so I guess because Durotan ended up playing Orgrim Doomhammer's role, Orgrim Doomhammer gets demoted to Durotan's best buddy, who seems to be going through some identity issues because he doesn't really seem to know what he's doing. He switches sides three times.
Yeah, one of my things is, okay, so they have this conversation where the one we mentioned earlier, where Durotan's like, I think Gul'dan might be fucking shit up. Doomhammer's like... and Doomhammer be all like, nah, nigga, he fine. But then, they have this thing where Gul'dan's, being all like, drink the Kool-Aid! And Doomhammer's like, yes, it is tasty and refreshing, I will. But first, I'm going to let my homies know so they can see it and see how fucking dope it is.
These are exact quotes from the movie.
These are exact quotes. And then, bam, with no explanation, no anything, suddenly Doomhammer just turns right around
and starts beating up Gul'dan's guys.
Right, and they never show the thought process, or him doing anything to indicate that this is a ploy with Gul'dan, or maybe it wasn't a ploy. Maybe he was all about the demon jizz. And then suddenly he's all like, no, I'm not, because I'm indecisive as a character. And then turns around, and I don't know. There's no explanation given for any of that shit.
And it's particularly interesting because the plot of Warcraft 2, as far as the games go, is that Doomhammer is now in control of the Horde because he's killed Blackhand. Well, he doesn't even kill Blackhand in this movie. In this movie, Lothar kills Blackhand, and they kind of set up a thing with them making crazy eyes at each other throughout the movie, and eventually Lothar kills him. But because of that, it's I doubt Doomhammer's going to be War Chief of the Horde in this. If they do make a second movie, I don't. This version of Warcraft 2 won't have Doomhammer as the War Chief because the whole point of it was the only reason Doomhammer got to be War Chief was because he killed the previous War Chief, and now it's not only is Black Hand dead, but a human killed him, so there's no real clear line of succession of who's going to be the new Orc war chief, and it probably won't be Doomhammer, because even though Black Hand's dead, Gul'dan's still very much pulling strings, and I doubt he's going to let Durotan's BFF, anywhere near that. So it'll be really interesting to see where they go on that. I guess my point being that, if people... And again, I'm not mad that they changed stuff. I'm just saying that if you are concerned about the lore changes, then get ready, because if there is a second movie, that's going to be an even greater divide.
I think they'd still have Doomhammer be War Chief, because logically, unless they just flash forward and never explain who was War Chief before Thrall became of age and go straight to fucking Thrall, it would have to be Doomhammer.
Well, yeah, it does have to be Doomhammer, because Doomhammer, in the original lore, is the one... Doomhammer is the one who passes the mantle of War Chief on to Thrall before he dies. So Thrall's whole claim to being the War Chief of the Horde was, the last guy gave you the job. So eventually... And again, they might... And yeah, they changed stuff, but at the end of the day, the stuff they changed was relatively minor, and all of the same story points from Warcraft 1 were hit. So certain big things will, have to remain the same. And I just don't know how they do that. Yeah, Doomhammer eventually has to become the War Chief of the Horde at some point. I don't know how, but... It will have to happen. And, I've never been a big fan of Orgrim Doomhammer as a character, but he is still a pretty big part of the Warcraft lore. And I hope he gets his due at some point in one of these movies, because he got royally screwed over by, the Thrall train in this one. As so many of us have been.
Evidently, there is going to be a sequel.
Oh, is there?
This is a news article as of June 14th.
Okay.
So, kind of recent-ish.
Mm-hmm.
Just where in an interview with Gizmodo, Duncan Jones talked about the movie on the whole and blah, 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 and then mentioned... that the Lich King may be in the sequel. So you're just... Nigga, you're just skipping over. Yeah, you're going everywhere. I don't know, so maybe...
If they do the Lich King... If they do the Lich King story in the sequel, then...
There wasn't even a fucking Nurzul in the goddamn movie.
He got killed in a 5-man before the movie.
Right.
No, okay, if they do the Lich King story in this, then I want the scene where Arthas cuts Illidan's dick off.
Huh.
But apparently the director said that he wants to do a sequel. The only problem... the problem I've seen as far as finances go is that this movie, they said, had to make $500 million worldwide to recoup all of to recoup the production costs and the amount put into marketing and so forth, and it only made $430 million, so...
It came close, though, ultimately. It did, 480?
Mm-hmm.
Or something? I mean, it came close.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe they're just going to say, hey, we'll just make the next one better. We have potential here. Or something. We'll fucking fire Khadgar.
It did, it is the highest grossing video game movie of all time.
Well, that's not saying much.
Yeah, that's not a high bar.
It does prove, however, that you don't need Uwe Boll to fuck up a video game movie.
The previous record, can you guess the previous record holder, the previous highest grossing video game movie of all time prior to Warcraft?
I'd say one of the Resident Evil movies.
No, actually. Prince of Persia, Sands of Time.
God damn it! game.
Have you ever seen the movie?
No! I didn't even know there was one!
Stars Jake Gyllenhaal and Ben Kingsley.
Of course it does star Jake fucking Gyllenhaal.
They try to pass Jake Gyllenhaal off as an Iranian. It's pretty funny.
God damn it.
But yeah, apparently they were banking on China to save this movie financially, and it had a huge opening weekend in China, but apparently there was an 80% drop-off in ticket sales between the first and second weekend. So...
Me no go see! Me no see again! It sucked!
My thinking is...
That was your moment of racism. Brought to you by Tostitos, because they wouldn't sponsor us.
But apparently they did a poll in China during the huge opening weekend, and it's like something like 70% was like 70% of those who saw it were gamers. So my guess is basically the only people in China who wanted to see it were WoW players. And then once they all saw it, no one else showed up.
Isn't that kind of the case here too, though? Except we were just, like, American gamers were just kind of like a lot more jaded about it, I think. Because we've been dealing with this.
In North America, yeah, but the numbers would suggest in North America that not even a majority of WoW players bothered to see it.
Well, I mean...
Which could have probably been rectified had they released it on a Tuesday.
Right? Which is, for those who don't know, that's the day Blizzard takes down the servers for maintenance, and you can't play the game on Tuesday during the day, so, if they'd release during the day...
Yeah, like release it on Tuesday, and then all of the WoW players, for that one day, for that one 12-hour period they can't play, get them out of the house. They'll go see the movie.
Exactly.
But I guess, yep, that's basically my thoughts on Warcraft. I think I liked it a bit less than you.
And here I am saying, it's a decent fantasy movie.
I mean, okay. My biggest complaint, aside from Khadgar, and again, I don't have a problem with Warcraft 1. I don't mind that they started it here. But my problem is that it just seems like if you look at the script, that this is a movie that has been. It looks like this is a movie that was made 4 hours long, and they cut it down to 2. In that there's so many side characters and plot points that they tried to cram in.
Well,
that it ultimately ends up kind of all over the place, I guess, and schizophrenic in terms of pacing.
See, that's the thing, though, right? I mean, that goes back to what I've been saying for fucking years on this, a couple of years on this show at least, that Warcraft should not be done in a movie. It should be done in a in like a television, quote-unquote, series, either on HBO or Netflix or somewhere they can, put some time in it, put a budget behind it, get some actual talent behind it. Not you, Khadgar, fuck off. And because then you can take the time with it that it needs and expand on it the way it would need to be. Warcraft, the lore behind Warcraft, while not sophisticated by any means, still can't really be done justice, so to speak, in a 2-hour movie or a 2.5-hour movie. Mm-hmm. Even with movies these days being probably longer than ever, you're still not going to get what you need into a 2-hour or 2.5-hour Warcraft movie. Not going to happen. That they chose the wrong fucking medium. I don't know why. I mean, I know that when they first thought of this idea back in '08 to do a Warcraft movie, that was before, Game of Thrones and before, Netflix started doing series and all this other shit, and before Walking Dead, and yada, yada, yada. Well, yeah, but they could have changed directions between then, before this thing got too, finished, too completed to stop. Mm-hmm. They could have changed directions. They could have flipped the switch on this thing. And, I think that ultimately is what this movie suffered from. And I think the reason possibly why you like this movie less than I did is because you had a lot higher expectations, I think. Or, I don't know, you just kept asking me over and over again, are you excited for the Warcraft movie?
I was excited.
And it's like, how many times do I have to tell you? No, I'm fucking not. Well, okay. I wasn't excited the last time you asked me. I'm not excited this time. I don't give a fuck. If it's good, it's good. If it's not, it's not.
I was excited.
And what did that get you?
Well, I was excited because, again, I kind of dig Warcraft 1, and the whole Warcraft 1 era really doesn't get a lot of play in the lore these days.
Because it's generic as fuck. That's why. I could have written that in, 5th grade. It's generic fantasy, basically, and they put it in a movie. They got a shite actor for one of the lead roles. Got a crazy guy for the other one. Put in all of the goddamn CGI. Which the CGI is really good in this, I will say.
I will agree. I'll both agree and disagree in that it's well done, but I think the decision to sort of try to keep it as close to that WoW cartoony style as possible ended up hurting it, because you've got these super CGI, super stylized dwarves and orcs and elves and the like, but then, that are all true to the game designs, but then you've got just regular people playing humans, and they kind of look odd next to each other.
Which, again, goes to what I said. If they'd done this in, a TV series, that would have necessarily been the case, because they could have, just done it as a CGI TV series or some shit. Mm-hmm. But, I wasn't excited about this movie because, A, I just didn't trust them to actually not fuck this up. I didn't.
I wouldn't say they fucked it up. I don't think they fucked it up. They didn't. I would say that it wasn't as good as they needed it to be, but they didn't fuck it up.
I wouldn't say they fucked it up either, but then again, as you said, I liked the movie more than you, because I think that's largely because I wasn't excited for it. I just approached it as a movie. I tried as much as I could to set almost a decade of playing World of Warcraft aside and just kind of watch it as a movie. And it's serviceable. It's a fun action movie. That's about all I can really say about it. I mean, like I said, there's worse things you can do with 2 hours.
Mm-hmm. Indeed.
Of course, then again, I'm also the guy who likes Battlefield Earth. And Street Fighter. And there are worse things out there than Highlander 2.
Let's move on out of the realm of cinema and let's talk about World of Warcraft Legion, the upcoming WoW expansion that is set to launch on, what is it, the 30th of
Yes, August 30th.
30th of August. it'll thankfully, I guess, be taking a lot of promotional time away from that abomination known as Overwatch. But in terms of Legion, so we know the story, generally speaking. We know the story. We know most of the features that will be included at launch. What are your expectations and what are your hopes and what do you want? Like, what is it in particular that you would like to see Legion do just right off the bat?
Content. Content.
All right, let's expand on content. What do you mean by that for those of our listeners who might not get what you mean right off the bat?
So, and granted, I don't really have any room to talk because I played Draenor for maybe 2 months and then sat out the entire rest of the 2-year expansion.
I played through it, and I can basically say you didn't miss anything.
Until, like, a month ago. Mm-hmm. And the sad thing is, I log in after not playing the game for for a little over, like, a year and a half, right? Mm-hmm. I log in, and there's basically the same shit to do that was there to do when I logged out almost 2 years ago.
Yep.
Except for one raid. One raid had been added. That was it. That was it. And granted, it's a 13-boss raid, so thumbs up. But, I mean, one fucking raid in 2 goddamn years. Fucking really, Blizzard?
I mean...
And, like, I kind of said fuck it with the entire expansion when 6.1 came out, and you guys may remember us bitching about that.
The selfie cam?
Yeah. No fucking content whatsoever in the patch. Except this goddamn fucking selfie cam.
They did add some daily quests to the garrison.
Whoop-de-titty fucking do. So, I mean, honestly, with Legion, what I expect, or, I don't know, what I expect is for them to do what they said they're going to do, for once. For once, can Blizzard, can you just do what you fucking say you're going to do? Which is, you know, they've said, you know, that they've basically apologized for Draenor being a shit show.
Well, and I think in terms of Draenor's content, I mean, if you look at Draenor, a lot of the story points that need to happen. They just happen in such a condensed way that it comes off as disappointing. Like, we keep joking about it, but Ner'zhul, who is a pretty important character for the Horde, is, you know, as far as the story goes, he gets off in a 5-man dungeon.
Right.
And, you know, Kargath Bladefist, who's another notable character, dies.
Is a raid boss who dies before a giant mushroom thing.
That fights you with moss. So, for those keeping track, Kargath Bladefist...
And, you know, I had kind of high hopes for him. Because he's kind of badass. I mean, nigga fucking cut off his own hand, and now has, like, a fucking, like, sword for a hand.
Being abused sexually by ogres.
Well, yes, that too.
But Kargath Bladefist, yeah, I mean, so if you're keeping track, Kargath Bladefist is an easier fight than the giant mushroom monster that uses moss as a weapon.
Yeah.
And then, again, you know, we get to my boy Blackhand, who actually got done properly, but then, you know, Kilrog Deadeye, who is a thing, apparently.
I mean, I don't know.
And then then you have Grom Hellscream, who his entire character arc just got like, it happened because they said it happened. Like, Grom is a good guy now, I guess. But what I'm getting at is all this rushed, haphazard lore development and all this rushed, haphazard game development, which we have been informed is challenging but rewarding.
To them, maybe.
But all of that happened because I think Draenor this was going to be their attempt to make the one-year expansion cycle work, and they fell flat on their faces with it, but by the time they realized
they fell flat on their faces, and as they were falling to steady themselves, they reached out and grabbed our dicks.
And by the time they realized that it was a mistake to try to do this, the damage had already been done, which is why I think you see stuff like Kargath and Ner'zhul, for example, getting offed in such a short amount of time, in such glorious ways.
Listeners, please note he said getting offed is in killed, not getting off.
And then, Grom's character development being rushed because originally they were like, we need to tell this entire expansion over the course of a year. And they have, Blizzard developers have completely walked back on the one-year expansion idea, and they are like, we realize that was a mistake, we're not going to go aim for that anymore. Legion is going to be a proper 2-year expansion, it's going to be paced accordingly, so that's why I actually think Blizzard with Legion will, quote-unquote, do what they say they're going to do, because I think they realize that Draenor, that the bad decisions that led to Draenor being what it was, that was a mistake, and they're not going to do it, and this is them saying, okay, we're going to get back to that 2-year cycle, we're going to commit to that 2-year cycle, and it's going to be better because of it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I've just heard them say we're in an abusive relationship with Blizzard at this point.
Mm-hmm.
They say they're sorry. They say they're going to be better going forward, and that they love us and they won't hit us anymore. And then they do it. I mean, the thing is, with the 2-year cycle, yeah, I'm inclined to believe them because they've been doing it every 2 years, whether they've wanted to or not. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, basically all they're saying is, yeah, we're just going to keep doing what we're doing. Well, in terms of that.
Well, they've said it, yes, but for both, Pandaria had a bit too, because they mentioned how in Pandaria they were expecting, Pandaria didn't exactly line up with how they wanted to pace things either. They were it didn't show as much, but the content drought in Pandaria was due to them not having Draenor ready, so Pandaria was meant to have ended a lot sooner than it did. I guess my point is that for the first time since Cataclysm, so for the first time since the end of Cataclysm, they have stopped trying to fight the 2-year cycle.
Yeah.
And I think, Pandaria suffered because of that huge content drought, which wouldn't have been there if they had not tried to fight the 2-year cycle. And Draenor suffered from being incredibly rushed and haphazardly paced because they were trying to fight the 2-year cycle. And I guess what I'm getting at is they finally admitted that fighting the 2-year cycle isn't going to work, and they're going to start getting back to it. So I think starting with Legion, we're going to start seeing pacing and content delivered at a rate akin more to Lich King and Cataclysm, which in my opinion is a good thing. You say what you will about Cataclysm, but the pacing of the content wasn't the problem.
No, everything else was.
So that's why I'm cautiously optimistic. I want them to have
You're fan, Mike. You're fan.
I want them to have learned their lesson. I want them to have realized that it wasn't going to work. and that going forward, and that they know what they have to, and that if they just stop fighting this 2-year cycle, then they can actually deliver a full expansion. And they've said that they've realized that. So now we just have to wait and see if they follow through with that.
Well, they've said that for Legion, there's going to be at least 3 raid tiers,
which to me is a step in the right direction. After Draenor had, well, they say
they say 2, but it's really like 1.5 at best. I mean, Lich King launched with 3. 3 raids.
Lich King launched with 3. How many did it end up with by the end of it?
Well, okay. When it launched, it had Naxxramas, it had Malygos, and it had Sartharian, so that was 3. And then they added...
TOC.
Well, they added Ulduar, TOC,
and then
ICC, and then Ruby Sanctum at the end. So it ended with 7.
Whereas Draenor launched with 2. And ended with
3.
And ended with
and
3.
Cataclysm, now I don't recall what it launched with. I think it also launched with 2.
Mm-hmm.
I couldn't tell you what, but I know it ended with Firelands, Bastion of Twilight, Blackwing Descent, something winds, 4 winds, whatever.
Yeah.
And then Dragon Soul. Yay, Dragon Soul. So 5. So, I mean, even fucking Cataclysm had 5.
And at the end of the day, if you just strip out everything about pacing, Cataclysm, Lich King, and Draenor were all roughly 2 years.
So I'm sorry. No, Lich King had 8, because there's also Vault of Archivon.
Right.
So 8 in Lich King. Now, mind you, a lot of these were small raids, like 1 to 3 bosses.
And TOC was basically all took place in a county fair.
Yeah, I mean, that was a 5-boss raid. It was short. It wasn't much, but it was something. So, yeah.
It was something, and it gave you something to try to progress through until ICC.
I mean, technically, if you want to count full, larger raids that weren't, what I call, a mini raid, 1 to 5 bosses, whatever, Lich King had 3. It had Naxxramas, which itself was a recycled raid from Vanilla that they released so late in Vanilla's life cycle that no one actually did it. And, well, no one could. For the original fight on the 4 Horsemen, you had to have 8 tanks.
God.
Nigga, what? What?
God.
And there just weren't really any guilds capable of doing that. So...
Point being that I think we're going to start getting back to those older style expansion cycles. Now that they're going to stop fighting that 2-year.
Yeah. Everything I've seen of Legion so far looks really good.
It basically is. You remember Lich King, right? You liked that. Love us.
Yeah,
what it is.
It seems to be like Wrath of the Lich King, except with the Legion instead of the Scourge. Potato.
We've got Dalaran, we've got, kind of Scandinavian-inspired landscapes.
Yeah, the Vicryl are coming back, so yeah, there's that. Dalaran's back. Yeah. Oh, and Bolvar is going to be making a cameo.
Bolvar's making a cameo, and we've got, and the Ashbringer is in it. So, yeah, it's basically the
Everybody gets an Ashbringer!
Indeed. Except if you're a holy pally.
The Stick of Healing.
I really think that the artifact discussion was like, well, we've got the Doomhammer for shamans and the Ashbringer for paladins. Do we feel like making up shit for everyone else? Sure.
Yeah, that's pretty much what they did. But it seems really cool. I mean, like, the idea is an interesting one, and I'll be interested. I'll be interested to see kind of like what they do with it, and if it goes over as well as they hope it will.
Mm-hmm.
Legion so far is being very well received, even by people who are traditionally very critical of Blizzard's decision making. I mean, no one's saying it's the perfect expansion, but everybody is saying it is undeniably a step in the right direction.
Which I think is
kind of hard not to do, but
well, it's hard not to do. But I think also it's important to keep that in mind as far as expectations go. The attempt to try to do the 1-year expansion cycle was a mistake. It failed, and that was a major course change for them, and correcting that course change isn't going to be fixed overnight. So the only thing I want to see is progress, that they understand that the 2-year cycle needs to be what they commit to, and if they do that, if they pace content accordingly, if they deliver content accordingly, then I'll go, okay, now we're back to doing things properly, and I'll be happy.
Well, they've said there's going to be 3 major patches, and they pretty much worded it like that. So that means there's also going to be minor shit, which may be like, and by major patches, I'm guessing they mean like, raid tiers dungeons. They've also said they're going to add something called a mega dungeon. I don't know. I'm kind of scared about that, because I go back and I think about Vanilla WoW, like Vanilla WoW dungeons that just kind of, how they were, fucking sprawled out.
Yeah.
Fucking like goddamn Morodon.
Yeah.
God damn it. I don't want more of that. No. But they say they're going to do a mega dungeon.
I don't think they mean that by mega dungeon. I think when they say mega dungeon, again, this is just me guessing. I think they mean just more bosses, like maybe more bosses than a traditional dungeon, but less bosses than a full quote unquote raid.
Yeah.
So yeah, so maybe like a 5 or 6 boss instance, I guess, for lack of a better term. Let's put that on. That's like a mega dungeon. But yeah, I mean, ultimately, that's what I want to see. Just recognition that something was broken and that they want to fix it. So, with that said, Blizzard's kind of been hitting the development. The development team's been hitting the gaming press to sort of do interviews, get the buzz out. And I figured we could take a look at some of these talking points and kind of, what do we take out of it?
Okay.
This is one that Tom Chilton did. He mentioned that lack of content in Warlords of Draenor was in part due to the team thinking Legion would be ready sooner. Again, that speaks to their kind of realization that the 1-year expansion cycle was not a good idea. Development team has grown, but the larger team is going to be able to produce more content rather than produce it faster.
Which doesn't make any sense.
How so?
Like, okay, if they were, the whole thing is, well, they can't make it faster, but they can make more content in the same amount of time.
Okay.
That doesn't make any sense to me. Because, okay, well then if you could have made more content in the same amount of time, and you've had this extra staff since Warlords of Draenor was in development, then where the fuck is the content for Warlords of Draenor? Because it's been that same amount of time, so where the fuck is like our extra raid tier and a half, and, the story?
My guess is that again, that was all just them trying to do one thing, realizing it wasn't going to work, and just radically changing direction.
Unless they just said, fuck it, and wrote off Draenor very early.
I think that's what they did.
And poured everything into Legion. Then I guess, okay.
It wouldn't surprise me if that's what happened.
Well, me neither, honestly, but goddamn, did it fucking cost them. I mean, they lost, 5 million goddamn subscribers in 3 months. Which, by the way, Blizzard says that they are no longer going to be reporting subscriber numbers.
Don't they have to? Because it's
evidently not. Just profits, not numbers.
Did they? What was their reasoning for that?
I don't know. I didn't see that. I just seen that from multiple sources around that they're just not reporting subscriber numbers anymore.
God.
So that's kind of like,
yeah. All right, let's move on to some more talking points here. Now, every time an expansion starts to wrap up and people start speculating about the next expansion, one thing that people like to toss out is, we should do a Self-Seas expansion, and you could get your own boat.
I'm on a motherfucking boat!
And Tom Chilton kind of shot that down. They talked about it before, saying how you could get a boat, you could upgrade it, sail all over the place, but that there'd be a lot of tech and art challenges, and that an expansion like that...
they don't like to be challenged.
Delivering an expansion like that while keeping core gameplay is a significant challenge, so I don't think that'll happen. Something else they said, that if you play for 1 or 2 hours in Legion, you'll get as much artifact power as you would if you played for 10 to 12 hours. I don't know anyone who actually plays 10 to 12 hours.
We do sometimes.
Have we gone 12 hours recently?
Maybe not. No, I think I have.
Mm-hmm.
When I was leveling my hunter recently, not like consistently every day for days, but I mean, there were a couple days in there where I went for 12 hours, yeah.
Gotcha.
Definitely. So, I don't know. But that's like, okay, they're doing the artifact power kind of like the garrison quests. Mm-hmm. Where you set it to be researched or whatever, and it takes X amount of time for it to finish.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, you will get the same amount as if you play for 2 hours and you will if you play for 12. But mm-hmm. they've got other things in there that you will get more of if you play for 12 hours.
Mm-hmm. Well, I guess it's just sort of a priority thing in that they want... they want to reward players who play longer with more stuff, but at the same time, artifacts are a central part of the expansion, so they want everyone to kind of be able to get the full benefit of artifacts, so hence they're going to make it as easy as possible for almost everyone to get the most out of it.
Well, yeah. I mean... And it's also a raid balancing issue because you're going to have people, you're going to have, guild masters who are like, well, you've got to have X amount of artifact power to be able to raid, yada, yada, yada. So they want to be, they want as many people to be able to take part as they can. So, yeah,
Everyone gets an Ashbringer.
Exactly.
The game will, it's talking about pre-expansion patches and release. The game will automatically create new instances in an intelligent way. If you're near friends, both of you will be in the same instance and you won't be able to tell anything that's happened. They've talked about this, basically, I guess, everyone basically using instances, I guess, sort of improve the questing experience, because there's not going to be leveled zones, right? Like, it used to be, in every expansion up until now, each expansion has new zones. And it's like, well, first you go here, and then you go here as you level up, and each zone is sort of leveled for a specific point in the leveling process.
Right.
They're not doing that in Legion. So it's like, when Legion starts, you can, assuming you hit max level in Pandaria, I mean, not Pandaria, in Draenor, then you will be starting Legion at level 100. And instead of basically going to the quote-unquote starting zone, it's going to be like, well, you can go here, here, or here.
Right, yeah.
And wherever you go will be instanced and scaled to what your level is. And then you go somewhere, wherever you want after that, and so on and so forth. So, theoretically, if you and I, Jack, start in different zones, then, you know, one zone will be a certain level for one of us, and one zone will be a certain level for the other one. And then everything would end up being level 110 scaled by the end of it.
Right. Yeah.
But as you level, basically using instances to sort of give a more, I guess, fluid and dynamic leveling experience. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Now, there have been people who have also complained about that, saying that basically they've only got 4 leveling zones in Legion. They got 4 leveling zones and one, like, quote-unquote, end-game zone. One max level zone. Suramar. Which, incidentally, Suramar, I've learned, is a zone that they've been, like, wanting to put into everything for years. Like, it was kicked around for Emerald Dream. It was kicked around for, like, a hypothetical South Seas expansion. All this shit. So now they're finally doing it. And people are just saying that this zone is, like, amazing for its storytelling and plot and all this other shit. But I'm getting off on a tangent there because
it looks like a giant night elf city.
Yeah, basically, yeah. But the thing with the leveling zones, like and scaling everything, there's only 4 leveling zones. So people are saying that, hey, you know, this kind of sucks because for my alts, that means the content's going to be all the more redundant. And they're saying, well, you know, most of the other expansions, even Draenor, had multiple starting zones, which Draenor did and it didn't. I mean, it did depending on, but it only had one depending on what faction you were. So, I mean, Alliance went to Shadow Moon, Horde went to Frost, whatever the fuck.
Frostfire Ridge, I think.
Yeah, whatever. So, I mean, you know. So they're like, yeah, you know, the content's going to be really repetitive for leveling alts. It already is repetitive for leveling alts. What are you fucking talking about?
I mean, leveling alts has always been repetitive to some degree.
Right.
In vanilla, there's a bit more variety because you could jump to different continents and you could do the leveling path on Kalandor or Eastern Kingdoms, but and that only goes so far as you have variety 2 ways. Lich King it was super redundant BC because there was only one starting zone. Right. There was Hellfire. At BC, there were 2 starting zones, but everything kind of converged after that. Leveling alts has always been redundant at a base level.
Yeah, exactly. So I don't really think there's a whole lot of validity to that argument. But I do like what they're doing so far with it. I am cautiously optimistic.
Okay. Apparently, a lot of this was done the reason they did this was to avoid the, quote, bottlenecking problem, where an expansion starts and everyone is in the same place. You and I experienced this when we played Pandaria at launch.
That was fun.
The massive cloud of helicopters.
Where are you, Mike? I don't know!
Are you hitting it? I don't know.
Yeah, that's what it was. Are you hitting? I don't know.
So, yeah, I guess they're getting... This is a good way to avoid that, I guess. Because everyone... everyone's gonna... people are gonna go different places. They say that they're gonna look and see how this works out. They might do it to older zones.
Oh, that'll cost a raid tier.
Well, it also would be interesting, like, they're going to do it to older zones where, older zones scale with you, then all of a sudden, how's that going to affect mining old content?
They would have to change just based on the way that professions worked. Like leveling.
Mm-hmm.
Which I know they already have in, like, the newer areas, so...
Oh, yeah, in Draenor, it kind of got a massive overhaul. But that would be interesting, if right outside Stormwind all the mobs were level 110. Like, if you were level 110.
Yeah, that'd be cool. Hogger. Hogger raid.
The return of Hogger. Scaling level... story and lore! Alright. Okay, the Illidan story never felt wrapped up. The team felt there was more story to tell for his greater destiny.
Okay.
Again, I'm going to go back to something I said. Are you and I the only ones who remember Malfurion and Cataclysm specifically stating that Illidan was not dead?
Evidently.
Because everyone, including Blizzard, has been like, we want to bring Illidan back, and apparently in this game it's going to be specified that Gul'dan brings him back to life, I guess? But, again, there's that one quest line in Cataclysm where you're talking to his brother Malfurion, and Malfurion basically goes, yeah, my brother's being a bitch in Outlands. So, it was put there in the game. He's still alive. And you've got these people going on YouTube, concocting these multi-level, storylines to bring Illidan back to life. It's like, he's already... Apparently he never died. He's been alive since Kata, at least.
Yeah, I don't know.
I don't know. And I even went back to see if I misread it. No. I don't know. It's just weird.
Yeah, I've gone back too, and no, it's very much fair. So I don't know.
Well, anyway, it's
a two-person hallucination which persists.
Apparently, they said the Burning Legion story has to continue to escalate, and it has been a long time since they invaded Azeroth. Well, here's the thing about the Burning Legion. This is supposedly the biggest Burning Legion invasion Azeroth has ever faced. They've even gone so far as to say this is a bigger invasion than the one from the War of the Ancients, which was like 10,000 years ago and massive and all that stuff. When the Legion inevitably fails, they've got to wrap that Burning Legion storyline up somehow. Like, after this, if this isn't the end. Because we're going to start reaching Borg levels. Where the Borg were super badass in Star Trek until Voyager, where they beat them every week, and then they just became sad. And so the Legion built up as this unstoppable force of, space demons, led by Space Satan himself. And when this blows up in their face, sooner or later, we've got to have the storyline where the Legion is just done away with. Because it just starts getting Lim as a threat start to be taken less seriously each time they fail. And so I think you already kind of see the hints of that. They released that book, Chronicles, which is apparently this massive history of the Warcraft universe. They go all the way from the start of the universe to the present. And it's retconned a bunch of stuff. It's been a massive lore restructuring, I guess on Blizzard's part is the best way to put it. And in it, they mention a group called the Void Gods. Or not Void Gods, the Void Lords, who are responsible for the creation of the Old Gods, who are these Cthulhu-like creatures. And I didn't particularly care for that, because I kind of liked the idea of the Old Gods, their origins being so far beyond mortal comprehension, and it's no, they're just the Void Lords basically just flick their boogers across the universe, and they're the Old Gods. But I kind of get why they did it, because you create the story with the Void Lords, and the Void Lords were apparently because the Old Gods are part of the Void Lords' plans, then, the Void Lords were responsible for Sargeras' corruption, and so they're kind of setting the stage for an enemy after the Legion, and even after the Old Gods. Because in a lot of ways, the Old Gods, as a villain force, were kind of spent after Cataclysm, because they were ultimately the ones who corrupted Deathwing.
Right.
So after Kata, Old Gods are done after Kata. The Legion will probably be done, if not after Legion, then soon afterwards. So I kind of see the whole Void God thing as them going, yeah, we're going to create new villains. And that, again, I think speaks to what they made very clear following, which was it wasn't in conjunction, but it was around the same time, that Titan, their mysterious MMO, went belly up, where they kind of basically said, WoW has no ending, we're going to keep doing it.
Right.
And I think at that point, the Void Lords are sort of their out. Once, because eventually you're going to have to end the threat of the Legion. You're going to have to end the threat of the Old Gods. And honestly, you still need more villains, and enter Void Lords. But I wanted to get your thoughts on that, because I don't know, in a lot of ways, it's been a bit controversial. I know I'm not alone in my disappointment of how they kind of retconned the Old Gods' origins. I know a lot of people have described this approach to, Dragon Ball Z, where it's a constant escalation. We're all through the original run of Dragon Ball Z. As viewers, we were told Frieza is the most badass villain in the universe, and then once he's dead, oh no, now Cell is the most badass villain in the universe. Oh, Cell's dead. Well, no, it was Kid Buu, who's you see what I'm getting at here.
Well, first of all, you should never name something that's supposed to be badass Kid Buu.
It's Japan.
Yeah, well, fuck them. They don't know anything except Godzilla. And that's about all they're good for. But I don't know. I don't mind it. There's always the inquisitive minds like myself that think, okay, well, everything has to have an origin, blah, 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 and want to know more. And so, yeah, I mean, they should give the old gods an origin. I don't see anything wrong with that at all. And yeah, I do agree with you that they're possibly setting things up for, future expansions, whatever. They don't know where they're going, but they at least want to have something there they can pull out of the dirt if need be. So I don't see anything wrong with that either. I don't mind the retconning. I mean, that's, when a lot of this stuff was thought of, they didn't know what they know now. I don't see anything wrong with it. I think people just get a little bit too weird about shit.
Gotcha. I gotcha.
As long as it's interesting, basically. As long as it still remains interesting, I'm down.
I think a lot of people, because for so long it's been understood that the old gods are this super corrupting influence, and they are just incredibly powerful, and we should all thank our lucky stars that they're imprisoned. And then
well, that's still the case.
No, let me finish. And then for so long it was held that the Burning Legion was like the ultimate evil in the universe. And now it's sort of being like, oh, there's something even scarier out there. And a lot of people are like, well, really? Because that doesn't jive with what we've been told for almost decades in some cases.
Well, see, I mean, isn't that the way real life is, though? I mean, we think something is one way until we discover that it's different. I mean, I don't see an issue with that. I think, again, people are just getting contrary about nothing.
Okay, no, that's a fair point. Fair enough. Okay, they mentioned basically that the faction leaders changes. They basically said it was time for a change, so that's why that happened. And I get that for Varian, because Varian's been leader of the Alliance since 2008, so it's been 8 years. But at the same time, Vol'jin hasn't been War Chief of the Horde all that long. Like if you wanted to, you could tell interesting War Chief Vol'jin stories still, because he hasn't had the job for that long.
Okay, could you tell interesting Vol'jin stories? Yes. Would anybody care? Probably not.
Aww. Poor Vol'jin.
I mean, he's basically the Horde Jimmy Carter.
He really is.
So,
bring Black Hand back. He'll make the Horde great again.
I just wish they before they killed off Varian, couldn't they have killed off Anduin at the same time? No. Had him on the ship with Varian or had him with Varian, whatever. I mean, couldn't you have killed Anduin at the same fucking time? Because we don't. He's just a human thrall. Fuck him.
Well, they go on to say that Anduin is going to have one of the more compelling stories in Legion.
According to them.
Wait, you didn't like his plan to send Garrosh a fruit basket and defeat the Horde with friendship?
Lol.
I don't know. It's like they say what they've been saying with Anduin, right? Is that he's going to learn that you can't always quote unquote give peace a chance. And if that forces some much-needed development for him, then I'm okay with it. But it's one of those cases where Anduin has kind of a reputation as a...
pussy?
No, I was going to say a creator's pet.
Oh.
And so whether or not they do it properly remains to be seen. Again, I still think there's potential because in terms of game mechanics, he's a priest. And there is potential that if he gets toughened up, he could become like a kick-ass paladin king.
Maybe. I mean, they have slowly, like, since Pandaria and through the whole Hellscream arc and everything, they've been bringing him around kind of to moderate a lot of his hippie bullshit.
Yes.
So maybe they'll continue that and he won't be a shite king. Like, the whole thing of, like, from the early part of the pre-Legion intro on the PTR, the test realm that I've played, basically it's just Anduin being like, I'll never be as good as Daddy. But, I mean, that's like the first quest, so whatever.
Isn't that Rodimus Prime's character arc from Transformers Season 3?
Yeah, pretty much.
I'll never be as good as you, Optimus.
Pretty much.
And we all know how that worked out.
Indeed.
I mean, it could work, but they really are going to have to toughen Anduin up as a character. Like, I don't know. Give him some hardship. Make him make some tough choices. Just make him interesting, because for so long he's been a bland, uninteresting, Mary Stu, give peace a chance, I love everyone character, and that's just not... Well, it's not interesting, so,
Well, I mean,
properly.
I've seen the Legion Invasion, and it's basically like fucking Independence Day all over Azeroth. So, I mean, it's pretty cool.
Does anyone give a Whitmore speech?
Not that I recall. No.
Aww.
Oh.
But, yeah. So, they say Anduin's going to have an interesting story. Oh, and of course they brought Magni Bronzebeard back to life.
Well, I mean, you could argue he was never dead.
Well, okay, they revealed that he was never dead, and now he's back.
I mean, I knew when they did the whole, oh my god, now he's Crystal thing, that he'd be back eventually.
But what did you think of the comic that they covered that?
I thought he was pulling the Thrall. Where he, like, comes back and he's all like, fuck Ironforge. I'm just basically like he's the planet's bitch now or some shit. And...
Well, they've revealed that the planet actually has a Titan soul in it.
Well, yeah, that too.
And so, I guess it is easier to be the planet's bitch now that the planet actually has a personality.
I guess, I mean, so, I don't know. I thought he was pulling kind of a Thrall, because he did the exact same shit that Thrall did for Cataclysm. It was just, instead of an orc, it's a dwarf. Instead of the elements, it's the planet. Instead of Deathwing, it's the Legion. Change out those variables, and boom, same fucking story.
Yeah, at least Moira got to work through her daddy issues.
Oh, fuck Moira. Varian should have killed her when he had the chance.
Didn't Anduin stop him?
Yeah.
I love that story, by the way, because it was all like, SI-7 was like, okay, Your Majesty, this plan calls for stealth and subtlety. He's like, Kerplunk!
Exactly.
And professions, of course. They say that they've completely revamped how professions are going to work. Now obviously, this is something we don't want to get too deep into, but they said that with professions, it's not going to be simply you learn new recipes and level up through the trainer. Now it's like each profession, they said, is going to have a storyline. And
joy.
And that, like...
Mining storylines.
And the way that they explained it, it's like, well, you level up your profession as you're doing. You level up your profession as you do the storyline, and that as the storyline progresses, you will get the recipes for new armor or new potions or new gems or what have you. And
that's stupid. I just want to get my fucking recipes or whatever and get on with it. I don't want the bullshit. Just let me click to get the goddamn recipe and go make it and make some fucking gold. I don't give a shit.
So you aren't someone who wants a storyline out of your professions.
Who the fuck does? That's stupid.
Oh, you know.
People don't take professions for storyline. They take them to make money.
Mm-hmm.
Or for something to do during their downtime, whichever. But either way, I don't want a fucking story.
Oh, get ready for the herbalism story. I'm sure that'll be riveting.
Yep.
Okay. One last thing on content droughts, and this is going to tie back to the first thing that we talked about. They said not having content droughts is a priority. They haven't managed to eliminate them.
No shit.
But okay. In fairness to them, they said, but we know at this point actions speak louder than words.
Yeah, I know.
When the team set out to make Legion, the goal was to solve content drought problems by making expansions faster than they have been before. They made sacrifices along the way. They discovered that a certain amount of time goes into making an expansion that is up to par of what players expect and deserve. If any expansion was just new zones and dungeons, you could probably make them faster. Basically, what that says is, to me, kind of just confirms what I mentioned earlier, that they tried the faster expansion thing, they realized they couldn't do it properly, and now they're going to back away from that, and I'm fine with it.
I am too.
Oh, and apparently most of Illidan's stories will be told in future patches.
Gotcha.
Which, again, I'm not opposed to that necessarily, but at the same time, if he's on the box, I don't know. It just seems weird. He's not going to be playing a prominent role right out of the gate.
They'll work it out.
Indeed. But I think that really covers everything that I really wanted to talk about with Legion, at least as we stand now. Anything that you wanted to add?
Nope, not at all.
Alrighty, so this is part 1 of 3 parts of our Warcraft Spectacular. We will catch you in a few weeks after we have sort of played the pre-expansion pre-expansion patch and launch, and then we'll get back to you then. But until then, for Jack, this is Mike, signing off.
Good night, everybody.